Well, on this 4th of July kind of special midweek edition in the MLS, we definitely had a lot of fireworks. I mean, not only there was a lot of goals scored in this midweek of these 6 games, and not only we saw some incredible goals, we also had a lot of blown leads. I mean, of all 6 of these games, half of them had a team that blew a lead in the 85th minute or later. And speaking of which, let's talk about the first game, because that's the first one of what would be 3 games that we saw teams that were leading in the 85th minute or later, and then they blew the lead. And this one might be one of the most impressive, if not the most impressive blown leads that I've seen this season. So LAFC were up 2-0 in this game. Blessing and Anthony K, of course, gave them a 2-0 lead. And they head into stoppage time. There was 5 minutes in this stoppage time, and they were heading into the 3rd minute of stoppage time, and LAFC still had that 2-0 lead. And there was only 2 minutes left before the end of the game, before the referee blows the whistle. And who knew that after when the referee blow his final whistle, 2 minutes later, that it would be 2-2. I mean, how in the world do LAFC let this one slip through? Like, they were 2 minutes away to potentially get all 3 points in this game. And even if they do concede this goal to Mauro Manotas, I thought for sure that they could just easily close out. Because when Manotas scored this goal, this was in the 94th minute. This was about 75 seconds before the end of the game. And yet, LAFC let this slip. And it was basically, I think it was a corner that was coming in, and it was pretty much the last kick of the game. And when that ball came in, it basically kind of created a big scramble in the box. The ball was kind of trickling in the 18-yard box, and I don't know how in the world did LAFC not clear that, but they let that ball kind of trickle in the box. Everybody was scrambling to try to either get that ball away from the box or put it into the back of the net. And what do you know? Senderos was the one that got to the end of that, and that basically trickled into the back of the net. I mean, if we replay this game 10 times, I guarantee you that 9 out of 10 times, and even 10 out of 10 times, that this game would not be a draw. And that this game would be easily an LAFC win. And the fact that LAFC just let that slip is just incredible. I mean, I've seen a lot of blown leads this season, and I've seen a lot of 2-0 blown leads, which, 2-0 is always a score that, everybody says that it's the most dangerous score, because if you concede one, then you let the other opponent with the momentum, and then they eventually could get that second goal. But all the 2-0 leads that I've seen been blown this season, this was probably the most improbable to be. I mean, how in the world did LAFC not able to hold on to this? And, I know that some LAFC fans, or I should say every LAFC fan, will be mad that the referee did not blow the whistle in the 95th minute, because remember, there was 5 minutes of stoppage in this game. The referee let this one go on for an extra 40 seconds or so before Senderos put this one into the back of the net. But at the same time, there's an old saying that you always need to play to the final whistle. And, it's not really an old saying. It's more like kind of a cliche these days. But there's always that old saying that you got to play to the final whistle, no matter if that final whistle should have come 30 seconds beforehand. And in this game, I'm pretty sure LAFC did not get the memo. Like, this team literally just stopped playing in the 93rd minute, which I don't blame them, because when you have a 2-0 lead and you're heading into the 93rd minute, sometimes there's going to be some lapse of concentration because your team potentially is going to get a win. But the fact that this team just did not wake themselves up and just did not break themselves out of that lapse of concentration after they conceded that goal in the 94th minute, it's just mind-boggling for me of how in the world did they not do that. And ultimately, they were punished by that, and this is a game that if they would have won this one, they would have been going to the top of the Western Conference. But instead, now they are, I believe, 3 points behind FC Dallas, who is currently now at the top of the standings. But as for Houston, well, now I guess you will know how exactly it felt like for a team to blow a 2-0 lead, because you are actually now on the other end of the spectrum of a 2-0 lead that has blown, which is a team that able to come back from 2-0 down. And that must feel good for the Houston Dynamos. I mean, of all the time that you have blown leads and unable to finish game, it must feel extra good to finally come back from a game, and a game that they clearly probably don't deserve anything out of, because LAFC was mostly dominating this game, and that this was just some robbery late at night. And by the way, this game was actually delayed an hour and a half, and was actually the first game this season that we actually had a game that was delayed. But yeah, this was just a midnight robbery in Houston, with the way that LAFC just completely robbed themselves of 2 points. But it's definitely a good point for Houston, and you never know that if Houston are going to make the playoffs this season, and if they're going to make it by like a point or two, this will always be a game that they will always remember as a game that if they did not make this incredible comeback, they would not be in the playoffs. And that same goes with LAFC, not in the playoff kind of way, but if they had a chance to finish top or even get a bye week and they miss out by 2 points, this is the game that they will always remember as the game that really is the reason why they either miss that bye week or maybe miss going to the top of the Western Conference and have home field advantage throughout the Western Conference all the way to the final. But moving on into a game that has crazy finish to a game that has a lot of crazy goals. I mean, this was certainly one of the best games that I ever seen. And for TFC, well, yeah, I gave you guys confidence that you guys can get the job done against Minnesota. And I thought this was a game that, they come back. They didn't come back, but they were coming into this game with back-to-back losses against very good team, and then coming into this Minnesota game, even though they don't have a lot of confidence, I thought this was a game that they can win, because Minnesota has not been very good lately. They have lost 3 in a row, and yet somehow, in some way, Minnesota at one point in this game were up 4-1. I mean, when I saw that, I was in complete shock. Like, how in the world does Minnesota United able to be leading 4-1 against the defending champ? And I think one of the reasons why they were up by that kind of margin was because of the brilliance of Darwin Quintero, who not only he was the man of the match in this game, and not only he scored a hat-trick in this game, but this has to be hands down the best hat-trick that I've ever seen in MLS. I mean, the first goal that he scored, he basically finessed it right outside of the 18-yard box past Alex Bono. And then the second goal, he basically just chipped Alex Bono on the right side to score that second goal to make it 3-0 after Ibarra scored in the 13th minute. And then in the 57th minute, he did the same thing. He chipped Bono once again, and this time it was on the left side of the flank area, and that was a goal that gave them a 4-1 lead. I mean, it's one thing to chip a goalkeeper once in a game, but to do it twice in a game is just impressive. I mean, you would think that Bono would know by now that after what Quintero did to him in the first half, that he would know next time that when he tried to chip him, he needs to make sure he'd be aware, but he just got completely caught off guard, even in that third goal that Quintero scored. And I mean, unbelievable. What a hat trick! Like you could not tell me which goal is even more impressive by Darwin Quintero in this game. And if you say one of these goals are more impressive, then I definitely will have a counter argument and say that the other goal was that impressive. And you could even make all three of these goals in terms of the candidates for goal of the week, and you would still not decide which one is the better one because all three of them was just godly. Although, to be fair, I also want to give a little bit kind of shout out to Javinko's goal too, because I think after all this kind of mayhem of a game where we saw 7 goals, I think despite the fact that the headlines is definitely going to be with Darwin Quintero and all 3 of his spectacular goal, you also have to say that Javinko's goal was equally better than what all those 3 goals that Quintero scored, because he absolutely strike one right outside of the 25-yard area, and it was just an absolute sweet strike. Of course, he didn't really celebrate it because his team was down 4-2 at that point, but it was definitely an amazing strike. And to be fair, Minnesota almost blew this game. They almost joined Houston, Atlanta, and the Galaxy as the victim of blowing a lead late in the game, but fortunately they hold on in this game, and this is certainly a massive win for Minnesota, not only to just get them back on track after they have lost 3 in a row, but also give them some belief that maybe this team will make the playoffs. I mean, I really think that for Minnesota, it's pretty clear that they need the second DP. Like, we saw what happened when they finally signed a DP and when they finally got Darwin Quintero. And ever since Quintero has been with this team, this Minnesota team has just looked so much better than what we have saw earlier in the season or doing majority part of last season, which were not very good. And who knew having a DP in your squad would actually make a huge difference. So I really think Minnesota definitely need to get a second DP. Most likely, I think they're going to need a defender as that second DP because, let's face it, the Minnesota defense was not very good in this game and also not very good throughout the season. And I can say the same thing about Toronto of how their defense, holy crap, it is absolutely hot garbage. And a defense that a couple of years ago, even when you have some of the key guys that is currently out, you bring in some replacement and it would still be a rock solid defense. Yeah, that is not the case anymore for Toronto. And that is something that Toronto is going to have to look at in the summer transfer window. They need to get some defensive piece because despite the fact that they have a lot of injury on their team, especially in the defensive end, there's just no excuse to say that they give up goals like this and like pretty much throughout this whole season, which is a lot. But like I said, this is a big win for Minnesota. Maybe this will give them a little bit lift in terms of them potentially getting into the playoffs this season. And for Toronto, well, if they continue to play like that, there is no way this team is making the playoffs. Like, even if this team does make the playoffs, it would be just a one and done for them. I don't see how Toronto, with the way that they're playing right now and with the squad that they have, how in the world is this squad gonna go deep into MLS Cup like they have done in the last couple of seasons? But now, going back to the blown lead topic, we have another blown lead in this game. And this one probably might be the one that if you ask all the fans and all the 3 teams that have blown a lead this season, you ask all their fans, what is the most painful one? You probably would get Atlanta fans saying that their blown leads are probably the most painful one because they are the only team out of the 3 teams that have blown a lead in this match week actually lost their game. Atlanta were up 2-1 in this game thanks to Martinez, who continued to be an absolute beast and an absolute goal-scoring machine this season. I mean, that's his 17th goal with the brace that he got. And if he keeps going at this rate, he will break that record. He will break that MLS single season goal scoring record that is currently held by Wando and BWP, and it wouldn't be even close for him to break that record. He's on pace to get 34 goals this season, but unfortunately, his team did not able to hold on to the lead like the other two teams I talked about. And once again, it's just lapse of concentration and just a team that think that they got all 3 points in the bag, and then in the last couple of minutes, they just completely fall asleep and just thinking that they can just cruise their way to the end without conceding another goal. Well, it turns out Atlanta fought that out in a hard way, because Teshu, the super sub, scored a goal in the 86th minute. And then 2 minutes later, he does the same thing again. And once again, just like the goal that LAFC conceded to Houston in the last minute of the game, this was very similar too. The ball was coming into the box. There was an absolute scramble in the box once again. Atlanta failed to clear their lines. And Teshu basically was able to get to the end of that. And then he basically sorts it home past Guzan. And this has to be a heartbreaking loss for Atlanta. And like the LAFC and Houston game, I thought Atlanta were the better team in this one. But FC Dallas really got back into the game in the last 10 minutes because Atlanta let them to get back into the game. Atlanta was just kind of cruising and just hoping they can seal this out. But it turns out that was not the case. And like I kind of said with the LAFC draw, and I give you guys a little bit hint about how LAFC missed their chance of potentially going to the top. Well, FC Dallas took advantage of that. They're now top of the Western Conference, and I will say that I said that in my preview that I thought this Dallas team would just kind of fall apart because Mauro Diaz is no longer with them. I want to say that I feel like I was being a little bit too critical with that, and I do kind of maybe owe an apology to any FC Dallas fan that is watching this and you watch my video being very critical about Mauro Diaz and how he was going to be the guy that they're going to solely miss, and their season is going to just be completely destroyed. Because I feel like this Dallas team, even without Diaz in this game, they look really, really decent. And this is just a team that I think maybe they're back to where they were a couple years ago. And maybe Oscar Pereira, after just a horrendous collapse last season, he finally learns his mistake. And now he is bringing this team back to the top again. And, despite the fact that Dallas are not getting a lot of headlines, which I think that is a strategic thing that Pereira want this team to be. This team is definitely could be a team that can go deep into the playoffs, and this could be definitely a team that can finish the top of the table because they definitely have the talent, and they definitely have the resources to potentially finish top of the Western Conference. And as for Atlanta, well, this is definitely a painful 3 points to drop, but they need to brush themselves off because it happens, okay? It looked like, for most part of this game, it looked like it was a classic Atlanta win with them grinding out a row win. But it turns out that, the time when they tried to always grind out resort on the row, that usually when you try to do that, you need to be very kind of alert, and you need to have to make sure that you are playing throughout the 90 minutes and not have any lapse of concentration. And unfortunately, as we have seen in this game, that is exactly what happened. They had lapse of concentration in the last 10 minutes, and by the time they try to get things going again, it was just too late. But yeah, moving on into the bottom part of my board and talk about these last 3 games. So Colorado, the one time I gave you some hope, and the one time that I favored you over Seattle, because I thought Colorado, since they won back-to-back games and that they are at home in this game. And they actually had a full crowd at Dick's Sporting Goods for once. I thought they were going to get a win against a Sounders team that are just struggling so badly this season, and that they are just kind of rebuilding in the second half of the season. But instead, they lost that one. Will Bruin scoring a brace in this game to get his goal tally total up to 5 goals. Sam Nicholson scored his first goal for the Rapids. I'm not quite sure if he scored a goal when he was with Minnesota earlier in the season before he got traded to the Rapids. But yeah, I gave you guys hope, and this is what you reward with me. And I just think that maybe Colorado should just go on another losing streak now. Okay, I'm just joking, Rapids fan. I don't want you guys to go on another long losing streak because that would be kind of depressing. But to lose against the Sounders, and just, it feels like what the Rapids play in this game, it looked like they were still on a losing streak. I mean, the defense was not very good in this game. And to be fair, you could also say that Seattle was kind of saved by Stephen Fry in this game, because Stephen Fry once again made a couple of big saves. I mean, the most impressive one was right in the 83rd minute when he saved that shot from Gashi, which I thought Gashi was going to score that. Like, that looked like it was going to end up into the back of the net, but Stephen Fry basically raised his hand up and basically just completely punched. I wouldn't say punch that ball away, but more like kind of like push that ball away to deny Gashi with the goal and the equalizer for the Rapids. And yeah, the Rapids lose again. And this, besides the 2 wins that they have got and the mini winning streak that they have, they're now back on the losing side, and it looked like that is going to be something that we're going to be saying a lot with the Rapids throughout this season. And for Seattle, well, they got a win, but I still don't think they're going to come back. Like, as much as I hear a Sounders fan said that, oh, we're finally getting ourselves together and that we finally can make a run in the second half. No, you are not. And I think it's the best for Seattle to just tank this year and just try to start this rebuilding process in the second half of the season. Because if they still think that they can compete and they don't think about rebuilding, then it's going to get worse and worse for the long-term future. And as much as Sounders fans don't want their team to rebuild and want them to compete one last time, it's for the best for the long-term future for them to potentially just tank this year, and then hopefully in the summer they add some key pieces, which I heard they already had added a key pieces in their striker department, but also just get rid of a couple of these old kind of core player guys like Clint Dempsey, for example. I don't know how in the world is he still on this team. I really think Dempsey is probably going to be done by the end of this year. And speaking of guy that is going to be done for this end of the year, Tim Howard might be a guy that might be done by the end of the year. And I know his contract runs till 2019, but seriously, did you saw how Tim Howard performed in this game? I mean, the first goal that Will Bruin scored, that should have been easily saved. I mean, the reflex and the reaction from Tim Howard was so slow that any other goalkeeper would have saved that shot from Will Bruin. And it's no wonder why a lot of people are saying that Tim Howard is done. And it's sad that he is ending his career in this kind of form, because he's been just such an American hero for not only for the national team but also at club level too. But moving on into the last 2 games and the other crazy game that has happened, RSL with a 4-2 win against Sporting KC. And as much as you say that this is a very surprising kind of result, I'm not. I said it in the preview that I thought RSL was going to get a win in this game, because I thought that Sporting KC coming into this game had a short week and that they have to fly all the way across the other side of the country to play in this game. And usually when a team does that, they usually do not do very well. And what do you know? This is exactly what happen in this game. And, Sporting KC did get an early lead from Shallowy in the 20th minute, which, by the way, that was horrendous defending from RSL. Like, how in the world did you leave Daniel Shallowy wide open in the 18-yard box? I mean, that was just a cupcake goal for Shallowy to score. Probably the easiest he will score throughout this season. But then Savarino scores a goal in the 29th minute after Sporting KC failed to clear the ball completely. And then Corey Bear basically scored after a poor giveaway. And then Sausalito scored right before halftime, which really was a killer blow for Sporting KC because, 3 unanswered goal after they took the lead, and to concede right before halftime, that must took a big blow to them. They did try to get back into the game with Aiko Opara scoring the goal in the 64th minute, but unfortunately all hopes were destroyed of them making a miraculous comeback after Showery got himself a straight red, which, to be fair, I don't think that was a straight red. I think it would have been a yellow card, and Showery was already sitting on a yellow card. I think that might be the reason why the ref decided to give him a straight red, because if you give him a second yellow card, it would have been a red too. And if you look at why Showery got a straight red in that instant, he was basically trying to jump for the ball, and his arm just kind of like wildly smacked Nick Beasler there, and I think that is certainly just, I really think that is more accidental than actually Showery want to knock Nick Beasler to the ground, and I feel like the referee was a little bit harsh in terms of giving him a straight red. But then again, Showery was already sitting on a yellow card, so if he would have, I think that would definitely be a yellow card offense. And even if the ref gives him a yellow card, he would have been sent off nevertheless. And that goes the same thing with Espinoza, who was also sitting on a yellow card. And the ref actually did give him a second yellow for this. And Sporting KC were down to 9 men at this point. And RSL did score a penalty late in the game, which, by the way, that was not a penalty whatsoever. I mean, the foul that I saw in that incident was outside the box clearly, and yet the referee rewarded RSL with a penalty. And I understand why a lot of Sporting KC fans are upset about that call, and I get why a lot of fans are upset that MLS once again get the call wrong, and that VAR once again get it wrong, and it just continued to give another solid evidence of why VAR is bad and shouldn't exist anymore in MLS. One, I will say that despite the fact this is the wrong call, it happens, okay? It kind of happens at time. And two, even if this penalty did not happen, Sporting KC would have lost this one either way, because this one happened right at the end of the game, and I think if that was a free kick, RSL will probably just pass it out, and the ref would probably just blow his final whistle. And I don't get why people are complaining that this game kind of went by too long. I mean, I know this game ended at the 101st minute, which is one of the longest regular 90-minute game that we had so far this season, but it's because the reason why it ended so long was we had that VAR situation and that penalty kick. That is the reason why this game ended so long. Yeah, heading into the final game, well, another week and another blown lead by the Galaxy, and another game where the Galaxy are playing the worst team in the league in their respective conference, with DC United being the worst team in the Eastern Conference and the worst team overall. Once again, they blew a 2-goal lead. And this time, they were up 2-0 in this game, with Zlatan scoring a wonderful volley, because that's what Zlatan does. And then Pontius also scoring a very good goal in the 25th minute. But then instantly, DC United answer with Steelberg scoring the 26th minute, and then Maddox scoring in the 85th minute. And once again, I have to say that the Galaxy, the defense in this game was absolutely shocking. And right now, it's pretty clear that the defense is costing the Galaxy games and costing them multiple points this season. If the Galaxy actually had a decent defense this season, I think this team would have easily been a top 4 team. But because of the way that the defense is for the Galaxy and how bad it is, and despite the fact that they completely revamped the defense, yeah, that is not the way to revamp a defense, and that is certainly a huge waste of money to revamp a defense, because it is as equally as bad as last year. And it also kind of makes me wonder, in the last game in the Cali Clasico, you know, some people say that that was a crazy free draw, but I really think that the reason why that game ended 3-3 and the reason why there was so many goals was because you have two of the worst defense in the league going at it each other. And really, it's when you have two bad defense going off each other, you will know that there's definitely going to be goals scored, and there's going to be a lot of goals that are easily prevented. And that is exactly what happened in the Cali Clasico too. And it's the same thing in this game too. I mean, the second goal was just, how in the world did Maddox were able to find some space to shoot that one into the back of the net? I mean, Romney was probably the biggest criminal in terms of letting Maddox able to find some space to shoot that one. I mean, he should have at least maybe made a tackle or tried to make sure he can block that shot for Maddox, but instead he doesn't. He let him have some open space to shoot that one. And yeah, talk about bad defending from the Galaxy. That was horrible defending. And it wasn't just that goal that was part of the bad defending for the Galaxy throughout the night. There was other incident that they just let guys completely unmarked, or just let guys beat them very easily. And yeah, for the Galaxy, this team is not making the playoffs this season if they continue to have this bad defense. I mean, Zlatan is literally single-handedly bailing them out each game by scoring incredible goals. And if it wasn't for him doing that, this team could have been right where they were last season. You know, the difference between the Galaxies this season, of them kind of half competing and half just being absolute rubbish, is that at least this season they finally have a guy that can score goals, which, you know, Zlatan is that guy. And compared to last season, where nobody can score the goals for them. But in terms of the defense, it's the same old defense. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all 6 of these games. I'll be doing the preview of this weekend's game probably tomorrow, because all the games that's going to be happening this weekend, or all 11 games, is going to be happening on Saturday. Well, actually 10 of them will happen on Saturday, and only one of them will happen on Sunday. And the one that is happening on Sunday is actually the New York Derby. So that will be definitely a tasty match to watch. But either way, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I will see you guys next time.